And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again to ICB TV. It's Wednesday, the 10th of June. Garry Carter here again. Very pleased to be sitting in front of you and ready to share the knowledge that we have about things that hopefully you all want to hear about. And today I'm delighted that I have as my guest Peter Stewart, who is our Director of Learning. And as a special request, he's not actually wearing a tie today because I was a bit concerned that he'd be concentrating more on whether he'd be changing it every 5 minutes rather than concentrating on what he was saying because of his presentation during the Inspire. So good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon.
Great. Peter looks after all sorts of things: education, examination, curriculums, all this sort of stuff. But he's got the title of Director of Learning because that's a little bit more all-encompassing. And when he took the job, he didn't realise it meant that it covered the jobs of about 3 or 4 people, so we only need to employ 1. But anyway, so Peter, just tell us a bit about your background, because you've been with a number of professional bodies. We are the latest in a long line.
Yes, I've gathered, well, along the road, I've gathered 2.5 training organisations and 2 professional bodies. So I trained as an accountant myself back in the last century, and very quickly realised that teaching accounting was probably more fun than doing the accounting, especially the accounting I was doing. I was in an audit firm, and it was a fairly thankless task. So yeah, I started teaching financial accounts, management accounts, for a company called BPP, which was one of the largest training organizations in Europe for sure. I was in course development, course design. I was liaising with the professional bodies, AAT, CIMA, ACCA, to try and understand where they were heading with their curriculums and their syllabus design, etc., and how they assessed it. And then I switched sides. I was poacher turned gamekeeper, or the other way around. I went to ACCA, although I wasn't actually working directly in their education department. I was doing some international development roles in projects. Then I went back into training for another 4 or 5 years, and then I went back to CIMA, where I had a couple of titles. When they got taken over by the American Institute, I went from being a director to a VP, a vice president of progression. But it's a similar thing, looking at how to make the syllabus accessible and how to make learning accessible to the students, and try and put the whole thing together with the exams department and make sure that the exams were a fair reflection of good learning. So the right people pass the exams because they've done the right learning. And yeah, I was there for 5 years or so. I moved on to a project that was looking at online learning and assessment, a combination of online learning and assessment. That project was coming to a close, and then I had the opportunity to come to ICB and try and put those things together, as you say, put the syllabus together with the exams, and working with our training partners and publishers to try and get as many people doing the exams as want to do the exams and passing the exams because they deserve to pass the exams.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, as far as we're concerned, you've saved the best till last. That's good. But apart from that, no, it's been very useful because you've got a lot of experience. And although you've worked for other organisations, you worked for accounting organisations, publishers, various other things, we quite often rely upon our own in-house knowledge, and we move people up from within. So, it's not many people we bring in from outside with quite your experience, but I think it has been very useful. We found it quite helpful. And also, because you're not what everybody who listens to this program and comes to conferences know I regard as difficult people. You're not an examinations person per se. You're not an educationalist per se either, really. You've got a thorough understanding of business and how this all fits in, because we can do whatever we want here, but if it doesn't suit the market, then we're wasting our time. So we try and be different. We try to lead from the front, and Unfortunately, for most people who work with us, we change our syllabus far too often, but it's only tweaks. It's not mass change. And I think the profession is moving along so fast at the moment that we've got to stay, well, the first target is to stay with the game and then ahead of it, hopefully one day. But yeah, we've got
my early observations of ICB compared to other bodies that I've worked with, borne out as we're looking here, is that it's a relevant qualification. And I think that's the most important. There's no point being innovative and clever and introducing modules or topics that are trendy, but they're not being used. And I've seen that, it's crikey, it's 30 years since I did my last exams. And I've seen so many people struggling with exams because they just don't get the relevance of the topic. They're asked to do things that they're not doing at work. They're asked to do things that people don't do at work because it's all theoretical and it's been in the syllabus for a long time. And therefore they struggle. And there's no point making people fail for not being able to do something that they don't need to do. So that's the great thing about our syllabus and our exams. It's what does a bookkeeper need to do and how does the bookkeeper do it? So we keep on top of developments with HMRC, for instance, when we're looking at the tax, the financial reporting standards for the financial statement presentations. We test, can people use technology to do their job? But we're not going into the fantastic theories of, I don't know what there might be, but if we see some highbrow thinking in the business schools, and that's all fine for an academic study, but it's not relevant to our members.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, the last couple of days we've been going back over our exemptions policy, and I think you'll touch on that in a minute. But we are finding that an increasing number of people are starting off on the wrong exam, on the wrong pathway, basically. Because when people say, "Well, what do you want to be?" and they say, "Well, I want to be X or Y," I want to be an accountant, I want to be a bookkeeper, or whatever, they will quite often get shoehorned into whatever the organisation has available to them or what they think they want. But having had a couple of months at this or a year and they've done 2 or 3 exams, they then start to think, well, hold on, this isn't quite where I want to be. I'm enjoying this bit of my study. So therefore, perhaps that's more relevant to become a bookkeeper. And we get a lot of people, obviously, who also start off with a qualification which is leading them to work inside one of the bigger practices. And then they think, well, no, that isn't quite for me. I want a slightly different lifestyle. I want to work for myself, want to run my own business. And we are finding that our training providers are particularly good at saying to people, look, I know where you started, but actually you've got some of the knowledge, but we think now is the time perhaps when you re-look at what your ambitions are and perhaps switch across to another course. And we are getting a lot of people who are coming across. Now, AAT, for example, they do a lot of advertising, spend a lot of money. They get a lot of students who want to go on and work for the likes of Price Waterhouse or wherever. But we do get an increasing number who come to us and say, well, look, I'm halfway through. Can I use this as some sort of an exemption? Then I can carry on with your exams and become a member because, I now want to be a bookkeeper. I've realized what it is I want to do. And that number is just growing quite exponential, isn't it, at the moment?
It is, yeah, and I think we're in an odd industry where I'm trying to think back to what kicked me off in a career in accountancy, but there was there's the phrase being an accountant, and it's actually very, very broad. But when you're making your career decisions at the age of 20 or whatever it may be, it's just there as an accountant. And even when I started, I was kind of inspired into it because I did bookkeeping actually as a summer job for a small business back in Edinburgh. And I worked with the accountant who gave me some insight to what the figures meant. And so I wasn't actually doing accounting. I was helping prepare the books, and I was sort of analysing some of the figures. I remember particularly stock management being a big thing to look at. But because it was an accountant that came to me, I thought, well, I can go into accountancy. And then the first word that jumps out at you, I suppose, is how do you become an accountant or a chartered accountant? Then you're pointed in the direction of the firms, and that is it's a comprehensive education. But I learned things in my exams that I've never ever used in practice, and I can't imagine if I stayed in practice if I ever would use them. And it certainly wasn't the stuff that initially inspired me to start off. As I say, it simply was bookkeeping and a bit of insight into what the numbers meant. So we end up getting a lot of people becoming accountants without realizing that it's chunked down into so many different tasks. I mentioned I've been with SEMA as the management accountants. They've got a more clear purpose, but AAT is quite broad, as is ACCA, as is the IC, or the Chartered Accountancy Bodies of England and Wales and Scotland.
Yeah, we're not dissing AAT in any way. I mean, they're a good qualification. They're a very thorough qualification. They're 40th anniversary this year, so they're about twice our age almost. And horses for courses, they do a damn good qualification. But if you want to be a bookkeeper, you want to look after micro and small businesses, and that's your future, I think, we have much more to offer than they do. But if somebody wants to go on and become a fully fledged accountant, perhaps go on through ACCA, ICAW, we are a route to that. But good luck to them, and we're quite happy to see them go on and become world beaters if they need to be.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to look at the profile, because I've been considering exemptions for a fair while now as to the applicants to ICB. There are people who, as you've described, have started on an AAT route. They've been presented as they get further up their qualification with things on budgeting and costing and kind of business type management accounting, and maybe realized, well, this isn't my bag. This isn't where I see myself heading. So that's quite common. But I've dealt with people who have come in with chartered accountancy qualifications from Ireland and Scotland, as well as people who have done university degrees in business, finance, accounting, management, and they're asking, is their learning relevant to what we do in ICB, and can they get exemptions? Can they get a foot up the ladder? And quite often, particularly with the university degrees, quite often I'm having to say, well, no, because you've not done anything practical. You can tell me, the history of accounting, and you can tell me the theories of management and Mendelow's matrix or structure, whatever it is, the Boston Consulting Group, and all these things that sit in those business degrees. But actually, can you tell me where the credit goes when I have this debit? And they don't learn that in the university programs. Some do, but not all.
I think that's because most of the chartered bodies are aiming for, the top 10 practices. That's where everybody tends to want to go at one stage in their life. That's what they're aiming for. And they can't teach them everything. It's a very broad church, isn't it, that we have, from bookkeeper up to auditor. And they have to aim for the top, and people peel off along the way and take whatever exams they need to get as far as they want to go. It's no different to a lot of other professions, really, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think every successful professional body is driven by its market. And as you say, the chartered accounting bodies, the market is dominated by the big accounting firms, and they consult with the institutes and help shape what those qualifications are. So, as you said, the qualification is relevant for the person who wants to be doing the work for those firms and their big clients, global firms and global organizations, etc. Just as we've got a qualification that, you know, we listen to our advisory panel members and shape our qualification on what we hear from them and other members.
Mandy Belinda, by the way, has just come in on our Facebook group and said, thank you very much. I'm really enjoying my study. So that's great.
That's good too.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if you get somebody that is PwC trained and you tell them to go into a small business and do the bookkeeping, the two people are not going to see eye to eye, generally speaking. I mean, it is horses for courses. I've used that phrase already once. And if you look at the majority of UK businesses, they're SME, they're small, medium enterprises. Virtually half of all businesses are actually micro, so, you know, under $1 million turnover by some way. But somebody has to look after their books for them because they don't want to do it themselves. Somebody has to be willing to spend their time doing that. And I think if somebody has done a range of exams which says that they can go and run the top 10 companies in the country or indeed in the world, they're not going to want to sit in a small plumber's office, say, and talk about debits, credits, and where's your expenses forms. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things. So, Clive, now I don't know if that's Blatherwick or Blatherwick. I'm a qualified ACMA and never thought of asking for exemptions. Really enjoyed the studying and exams. Like Peter, I started as a chartered accountant, but did not like it. Oh, well, great. So, well done, Clive. That's good.
Yeah.
We start with bookkeeping, go on the other way. So
it is quite. It's very encouraging to hear that, Clive, because I often feel when I'm looking at people who do ask for exemptions, and you know, like yourself, let's say ACMA comes in. Well, you know, I know the CIMA qualification better than most. I kind of helped design the last two qualifications at CIMA, and I know that something as fundamental as double entry, yes, it's in there at the start, but there's nothing that says for a small business how would you prepare the books, because again, CIMA's aiming towards the management of businesses through the finance, the financial figures, and it doesn't have anything about submitting returns or a small businesses. It does aim towards the bigger businesses. So, as I say, I'm encouraged to hear that, because I sometimes feel guilty that I'm saying to people who have got a well-respected global qualification, and say, I'm not saying you're not good enough for us. It's what you've done is different. You know, I think if I were if I were looking for a heart surgeon, I wouldn't look for a brain surgeon who thinks he can put his hand to heart surgery. I'd want somebody who's fully trained in heart surgery.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that when, you know, there are other bookkeeping qualifications available, as we know. And to be honest with you, I'd rather you've got a good bookkeeping qualification, even if it wasn't ours, and be happy with what you're doing in life. Because if you're doing what you like doing, then I think you're much better at it. And in fact, I had a conversation yesterday with Kirsty St. John, who's one of our council members, but an avid ICB TV watcher, and she was just saying that she talked so much about her job and what she does, and she's inspired everybody, so much so that her sister Fiona has now said, oh, all right, now I want to be a bookkeeper too. So this is her older sister, I think, and she's now going through our course because she's seen what Kirsty does, and she wants to have that same sort of feeling from a day's work. And you know, our members are really, really very enthusiastic, and this is why I like as many people as possible to get to a branch meeting or come to conference, because it really rubs off. You know, they're not sitting there with a glum face just staring at their iPhone and their iPad. They listen, they take in the information, and they're, you know, they're sponges for information, which I think is great. So yeah, we do get a lot of that. So Peter, we talked about exemptions. What you actually do is you go through another body's qualifications, and you don't just say, oh yeah, well that's a level 2, so straight over, or a level 3. So you pick through what they do within that to make sure it matches the competencies that we need. And
yeah, that's exactly right, Gary. I mean, the word competency is important there, because you can have syllabuses that have got the same topic stated. So they might say, just broadly thinking, budgeting, but it's how that budgeting is done. So what's the learning outcome, and what's the assessment criteria that matter? So I mean, I suppose going back to Clive's CIMA qualification, I can see that there is preparation of financial statements in there. But if I look into the assessment criteria, then it becomes sort of too high, too broad a level to be something that our members, as our ones who start from A1, start working through from the first exam, they learn how to do things, in a very specific way that's geared towards the small businesses, geared towards using accounting software, and nobody who has just done the CIMA qualification or ACCA has used accounting software to prepare a set of financial statements, not as part of their accredited learning in their exams. They may have done it elsewhere, and we've got routes to entry through practical experience that will reflect that bill, or will reward that experience. But yeah, I'm looking to see whether prior learning matches what somebody would have done to get through our level 2 or some of the exams in level 3. And if I don't see a strong match, then I would worry for ICB's reputation, that we are giving people memberships and practice licenses and sending them out to the world when they haven't demonstrated the competence that our eight exam members have.
Yeah, I think the thing is, we've got to be fair to our members as well as to their clients, that we have to make sure that if they're standing side by side with each other somewhere, that they both have the same competencies. And I think that's important. I think it's something sometimes our members forget also, when they're talking to us. We say, no, but everybody is at the same level. The bar is the same height. How you reach that bar is down to the individual. But I know that we've changed obviously our level 4 syllabus, and we've had our first diploma awarded. Anish Jose, he is actually coming on next week to talk to everybody, so it'd be nice to see what he's got to say. But he has got accounting experience. He works in a firm of accountants, but the firm of accountants decided they're not doing very well on their bookkeeping, so they I don't know whether he drew the short straw or what it was, but he ended up doing a lot. But he went back to basics, went back to 1, so he's done 8 exams, plus he's done the level 4, he's done some of the add-ons, all since the 27th of April. I mean, that's an exam a day almost. Now he's done really well. He's got through. He got an honours for his level 2. But yeah, I mean, just talking to him, he said, yeah, it was really hard work, but the business decided that that's what they wanted him to do, and they committed him to it. And he learned with our books, I think, most of the time, and did lots of mock exams, which I think for those of you out there who are thinking of doing any of our exams, where you're adding to your existing qualifications, or and adding therefore to another level of membership, or whether you're a student for the first time with us, and we've got about 20, 30 of those on today, I can't stress too much the benefit of doing a mock paper. I know we sell mock papers, so there is a commercial interest here, but that is minor trust me, that is minor. The main thing is to make sure that you feel comfortable with the style of an examination that we're going to give you when it's the real thing. And we do find that there is, I've forgotten the exact percentage, but about 10 or 11% greater chance of you passing the exam if you've done at least, I think most people do a couple of mocks, don't they? They do something like that rather than just the one.
Yeah, there's a significant correlation between them, and yeah, we have 2 mock exams, and anyone who's done exams recently will be able to confirm this, that the mock exam is it's a proper mock of what the real exam is. It's not just some test your knowledge questions on random bookkeeping topics. It's the same layout, it's on the same platform. You know, where templates are used, it's the same template for questions. So I always recommend people to take 2 mock exams. First of all, you establish where your strengths, weaknesses are, you establish where the feel of the exam is. If there's time pressure on it, you understand where that time pressure is, and you get the feedback. And then you look at all your strengths, you look at your weaknesses, work on them, whether it's technical, whether it's to do with your time planning. You work on those weaknesses particularly, obviously, and then you take the second mock exam just to be able to tell that work has been fruitful. And you know, you get a result from the second mock exam. There may be tweaks that you can put into it, but it's quite unusual to see somebody passing a second mock exam and then failing the real exam. And even failing the second mock exam doesn't mean you're not going to pass the live exam, because it is that you use it as a learning experience and practice. You know, I always say it would be like going out to take your driving test having never sat behind the steering wheel of a car. Yeah, you've got to be familiar with what the challenge is. And yes, you're right, Gary, there is a small commercial benefit to us from doing that, but it's less beneficial to us having people financially beneficial, taking 2 mock exams and 1 live exam. We'd make more money if people took 1 live exam, failed it, and took another live exam. So
yeah, exactly. And that's true.
If we had the profit and loss account in mind, we wouldn't be saying this, Gary. We wouldn't be giving
No, we wouldn't. But anyway, and I've got it's the day for names today. I've got another one here. This is from Natalie. I think it's Bocher, because there's an umlaut I see over the O, so I think that's Bocher, but B-O-T-T, Bocher. Very interesting. Listen, coincidentally, I submitted my application for exemption membership with ICB today. Right, Natalie? I shall keep an eye on that now. And,
we'll look out for that one.
We'll welcome you on here as a fully fledged member. So that is brilliant. It's good to have you with us. Just drop us a note as to what exactly you're hoping to throw into the exemption pot there to see if we like it or not. Be interested to know who you've joined from, but that is fantastic. Love to have anybody with us. And so one of the big successes, Peter, I think, has been following on from the government's move to try and get micro and small businesses a better price for their year-end accounts, the opening up of FRS 105 and then obviously 102, 1A. That seems to be really, really popular at the moment. And from the members I've spoken to who've suddenly got this qualification, it's given them that extra confidence. It's given them another string to their bow. And clients are lapping it up. So that's been one of the big successes, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And it's, I mean, I suppose, as I said, I'd spent a few years at SEMA, so I'd taken my eye slightly off the ball of what was going on in financial accounting. And when I came back and started looking through the FRS 102 and the 105, looking at what goes on there, and it's really, really good for the smaller and the micro businesses to have something that is quite accessible, fairly straightforward. You know, when you see the presentation of the financial statements doing that, you know, it is, for me anyway, it just seems a lot better to have those standards operating. And yeah, again, like you, when I've spoken to people who have been studying for the level 4 certificate in financial statements, or who have been interested in it because their clients are looking at there, it's great for them, because it's a good certificate, good qualification, but it's good because it gives our members something extra to do if they want to take on more work and offer more services to the client. And you know, I'm all for, in that sort of customer services side of things, thinking of the practices, that I'm all for having more and more lines of service. That you don't really want to do 80% of the work, pick up 60% of the money, and hand over the 20% to someone to pick up the other 40% of the money. When for the majority of businesses in the UK, we can do it ourselves as bookkeepers.
Yeah, I think that's working well. And one of the other things that I'm asked a lot of times is, I did my exams. I think I'm good because I'm doing, but there are certain things that I don't do very often. Is there any way that I can revise that? And I've said, well, there's nothing to stop anybody that is a member taking a particular exam again, or some mocks again. One of the ones we get a lot of inquiries of is a lot of people do, a lot of self-employed people. They'll eventually, perhaps, although they're allowed to do it, they then get into a limited company, but it's a while since they've done a limited company. So there are subtle differences, and particularly also with not-for-profits, etc. They can certainly dip in. Our exams are broken down so that the M5, 5, 6, and 7 are those three, aren't they? So 5 is sole trader, 6 is that the partnerships?
We're slightly different numbering, Gary. There's sole traders is M4.
M4, right.
M5, not-for-profit organisations, which is an interesting one, is M6, and limited companies at M7.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to top up their knowledge because it's a while since they've done something, they get a brand new client, that's very simple for them to do, isn't it? They need to speak to somebody in the office, make sure that they don't get thrown out because the system tells them they've already got it, but we can do anything like that for them, yeah.
No, again, I actually saw a comment coming up on the Q&A that was commending the mock exams. You know, if you're in that position, and I would also say the same for our tax, self-assessment tax modules, if it's a while since you've done that, 2-3 years, and you need to update your tax knowledge for the current or latest finance acts, then for £15, the mock exam is a very quick way to establish where your competence lies and how deeply it needs to be refreshed. And of course, if you identify that actually you've forgotten more than you thought, then that's, you know, there's the study texts, or if you want to, I'm sure our training partner friends wouldn't turn somebody away who wants to.
No, absolutely not.
So, you know,
another interesting slant on that, I've got here an email from Neil Borhill. Hello, Neil. I would like to get on with my training. I achieved level 2, etc. But I've now moved on, and I've been studying the M4 paper, but I've been sidetracked by extra business with coronavirus. Neil works with his wife Sylvia. They have a very exceptionally good practice there at the moment. Practice of the year last year, actually. Please, can you confirm if it's okay to carry on with level 3 despite a few years break? It is, yeah. You can, you know, as long as it's not more than, say, 5 years, as long as you're working, and we know that you've been working. If you've taken your exams and you've skipped for any reason, you've not picked up a calculator or anything since, then we'd want to go back and make sure you did some revision on that. But certainly, Neil, somebody like yourself who we know is working in practice, it says here you've been working with Sylvia. That's great. We are getting a lot of husbands joining wives in their bookkeeping practice, and touch wood at the moment, they all seem to be working very well. I mean, obviously, we only see it from the outside, but that seems to be working really well. So good for that. I've got something here, Judith. Hi, Judith. I was a defector from another organisation. I won't say which because it looks as if I'm picking on everybody. I'm not really. Did all their exams. It was a project that was not based on reality and made me run away and over to ICB 6 years ago now. Never looked back. So glad I made the jump. Judith, so are we. Good to have you with us. And as I say, horses for courses, you have to make sure you've got the right. If you're happy with your qualification, you're going to work better at what you do. You're going to have a better business that you're running, etc., etc. So just keep going. That's great. Richard James says, will there be another webinar from Tax Filer regarding 105 and 102? I had to miss it due to unforeseen circumstances and wanted to see if 102 exam would be something I wanted to take to move up from my 105 qualification. Hoped it would be on the YouTube channel, but sadly not. Richard, I'll check on that. I don't know. Excuse me, Sobi, if Sobi is always sitting in the background here. She won't come on screen, but she might just answer the question. I don't know whether we got that available on YouTube somehow.
Yeah, we've got a recording. I'll get it sent over to him.
Great, we'll send that over to you. Anybody else wants that, please drop us a note and we'll get that over to you. Yeah, I mean, Tax Filer seems to be doing really well for our members. A lot of people have signed up to it. And, Richard, who talks on Tax Filer, he's quite a character. So that always helps, I think, if that's good. And, Richard said, thanks, Sobi. Great. That's fantastic. And I think we're done on that at the moment. So what's your pet project at the moment then, Peter?
The exemptions seems to be we look a project on that seems to be going well, and hopefully
you mean it's like walking through treacle? Come on, be honest.
We'll have everything updated hopefully by the end of the week. I've been working on the new level 4 certificate that we're going to have for Business Insight, which I'm very pleased with how it's looking. Still on track to be an autumn release for that one. That's going to replace the management accounting certificate that we've got. And again, as I said throughout, it's focused on the bookkeeper, what the bookkeeper needs to do for the clients based upon preparing the books, being able to look at where there are opportunities, where there are difficulties, helping with planning, control, decision making. It's not just another management accounting exam. So that one's looking good. I've been keeping an eye on the other level 4 exams. Obviously, we've now, crikey, it doesn't seem that long ago that we launched them, but they've been going for 5 months. I was just analysing the performance on them earlier today, and pleased to see that they are performing well with good pass rates. One or two, sort of slight problems along the way. The teething problems more than anything drastic, which we've had taking over. And I've got on my to-do list to look at the CPD and try and build a framework for CPD that focuses on competencies, and hopefully our members will be able to identify where they're strong, where they need development and competencies, and we'll be able to match the development needs to some kind of learning opportunity, whether it's a webinar, whether there's a learning module that's delivered online. That's another one.
I think what we're finding, what I'm getting from the members at the moment is that in the past, a lot of their clients have said, well, look, just do the books and give me tell me whether I'm in profit or not at the end of it. I don't really want to know. But COVID has actually opened up a whole new ballgame for our members, because far more of their clients now say, okay, what's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 months? What have I got to do? So actually, we've come out with this. We're coming out with this at the right time. This business insight, which is not our insight into the business, but it's about telling the business person themselves what's going on in their business. And I know that sounds as if that's rather rude. We're telling a businessman how their business is doing, but actually that's what the majority of micro and small businesses need. And I think increasingly, as I've just said, want now. But yeah, I think a lot of businesses in the past have just continued from day to day. And if it's profitable, whoopee. If it's not, they panic. But there's no real control over which one of those two it becomes. And I think COVID has meant they've got to do a bit of planning. They've got to look back and forward, even if it's only to get money from the government. So it's a really good time to add this to your service if you're a bookkeeper.
Yeah, and it's exactly that, Gary. It's the looking back versus looking forward. And what we do when we prepare a set of accounts from a trial balance is we say, on the 31st of December, this is what that business looked like. And for the year up until the 31st of December, this is what the business did, so that it ended up looking like this back then on the 31st of December. But the insight is more for somebody who's a partner with that business, so the bookkeeper. Yeah. To say, when I was looking through your figures, there were a few things I noticed there. And I think if you address this issue or that issue, then maybe the next 31st of December will look even better. Or if you don't address that problem area, the next 31st of December will look worse. So, you know, I've done in the past when I've been artistically inclined, I've had a sort of image of a ship, and the financial accountant stands at the back of the ship looking at the waves that are left behind in the sunset, while the management accounting stands at the front pointing out that there's an iceberg up there. So it's then to try and get the two things in sync.
Well, I normally have a rule which is on ICB TV not to mention anything that's coming because people will want it immediately. And this, as if to prove the rule, Lucy Brown has just been on saying, when is the new exam available for this new business insight? Are you willing to put your name on a date?
I said autumn. And that's going by the lunar calendar. No, it's the training partners have got sight of. The syllabus has been reviewed by the advisory panel, and thanks to them for feeding back. And it was all heading in the right direction. I think I'm right in saying that all bar a couple of the comments they had were where I'd left those typos in the draft syllabus just to check they were reading it properly. That's the only reason there were typos. And I've got a mock exam which is with the training partners, so they can see where the syllabus is heading in terms of its assessment. They got that about a fortnight ago now, and I'll hear back from them. And it's to help them start designing the courses. So they'll be able to get courses out. How long it takes somebody to complete a course or go through the book, I don't know, but I'm aiming to have the exams going live in September.
Good. That'll be great. I hope that's okay for you, Lucy. That gives you plenty of time to get your exam done before we get as far as our summit. And Sobi, we've just had Chris also on, just saying, can you send him the tax filer information? So I'm not sure I've finally finished that, but yes, tax filer will be coming back on again. And in fact, Peter is hoping to work with tax filer a little bit on there with their software for getting our exams incorporated, or their software incorporated into our exams or something like that. There's quite a lot of people doing tax at the moment. A lot of the big three, for example, they're all now including in one form of taxation or another. So I think everybody's realised that this is the bookkeeper's way ahead. So that'll be excellent. But yeah, they will be back. And just to give you a heads up for what's going on for the rest of this week, tomorrow, Thursday, I've got Trent Mclaren coming along. Trent Mclaren is many things, but he was voted Thought Leader of the Year a while back. He's recently organised quite a large conference for accountants to try and tell them what automation was. So we'll be interested to see how well that went down. But he's coming to talk to us about the way the profession is moving forward. He actually works for Practice Ignition. Now, some of you have come across Practice Ignition. Now, quite often some of these big firms charge accounting rates, and they do seem to be off-putting for some bookkeepers. So that's something else I'm going to discuss with him tomorrow to see how we can get into this. Practice Ignition is a way of you automating your processes, keeping an eye on everything, and therefore a bit like you're telling your clients to do in doing their books or letting you do their books. He's saying, well, now you need to start looking at your practice and make sure that you're working properly, because if you're working smoothly and efficiently, you'll be able to do more, you'll be able to achieve more. And it's one of the themes that we will be working on throughout this year, particularly as we move towards some more inspiring content, and also for the summit. And we're working with a couple of people at the moment to put together all sorts of additional information for you, and hopefully that will be coming up. Then on Friday, it's Thankfully it's Friday again. Jackie will be here. She's been running updates all week. They're all going up onto the hub, so onto our website, onto resources, and then onto the COVID hub. That will give you most of that information there. But she's going to come through and give you a chance to ask her questions about it, and she will be doing some explanations. And there's a lot going on at the moment, and we'll presumably have something on Friday that you haven't heard of before, which she's pretty good at. So again, look forward to seeing you back here for that. Peter, you mentioned CPD before, and we are getting a little bit tougher, if I can call it that, on CPD. We do think it's a very important element of a bookkeeper's professional life. We are heavily suggesting, we are leaning on people as much as we can at the moment, but I think in order to keep our place within the profession, we do need to start bringing in a much more strong compulsory element. Is that your thinking?
Yes, yeah. I suppose it is something that, again, has been sort of bubbling to the surface when I've been looking at the exemptions and so forth, and thinking in particular of one request about someone who had done their self-assessment tax exam. I think it was more than 5 years ago. And of course, if they're providing self-assessment tax return services to clients, you really ought to hope that they are making sure that as each Finance Act comes through, each budget passes, they're analysing and scrutinising that and staying on top of all the rates and the allowances and the thresholds, etc. I mean, that's just one example, but because the work that our members generally do is dependent on that, it's important to be up to date technically, and we know it's rules, regulations, and so on change. But I think it's also important to be aware of how the marketplace is changing. What products are there that will do the job for you? What accounting software is there? And how does it work? What services does it provide? And really, for someone who's running a bookkeeping practice, to be commercially aware of what opportunities there are. Now, you would expect anyone who's running a business, that's an important factor to know, whether it's a plumber knowing about changes in technology or knowing who they're competing with. And we've got to look at that as being something that helps keep our members and our practice firms relevant, competitive, and keeping their heads above water. So there's quite a lot to it. It's not just knowing the rates and the thresholds. It's about running an ICB business.
Yeah, many years ago, I was speaking to somebody who I met, and she was a designer for Ford, the motor company. And she was part of the design team to put together this, what I call the electronic roller skate, the car, KA. And I was given one once when my car was being serviced, and I got in this thing feeling very disgruntled, but it was the most beautiful car to drive. It was wonderful. It was the sort of thing you felt you could go anywhere on it. It was like a roller skate. But she was saying that, I said, well, how, she was bigging up the fact she was a woman designer in a man's world, but she'd come up with this car that everybody loved. And I said, well, how did you do it? She said, well, I looked at it and I thought, well, who spends most time in their car? Well, that's probably a chauffeur. So let's go and talk to a chauffeur, because they've got big cars and posh cars. She said the number of things that the chauffeur said he liked or disliked, or the bit that they used most, she then tried to adapt that into a small car version of it. And I think what a lot of our members say, look, I don't want to go and see this piece of software because it's far too expensive for me. Okay, but it's good to know what it is that's on offer, because there is always another version of it available somewhere. Or even if you are using Xero or Sage or Intuit, if you go and try one of these apps and think, yeah, that's fantastic, but I don't want to buy an app, I'm going to go and badger my software company and see if they'll bring it in as part of their service. That's what we're doing. That's the good thing about coming to something like our summit. In the days when we used to be able to physically go to summit, and you could see lots of different stands there, and you could go and test drive, if you like, these sorts of things. And I think it's this expansion of knowledge. It's much easier to do it properly if you've got a lot of knowledge, rather than battle on with your Excel spreadsheet and think you're ruling the world, because it isn't quite like that. Susanna has just sent a note saying, I have the ICB level 4 certificate in advanced bookkeeping and accounts, which was awarded in 2015. Congratulations on that. Do I need to pass any further level 4 certificate exams before I can become a fellow? Susanna, I can't answer that immediately. I would suggest no. I think you're there, depending on whether or not you've been working in level 4 since then, or those sort of competencies, because the thing about moving up to a fellow is you've got to have a minimum of 2 years as a full member. So presumably you've done that from what you said. If you can give me a little bit more detail of who you are, I'll get Sophie to follow up, and we can give you an answer, not on air obviously, but I can give you an answer on that. I don't think there is at the moment, but I don't deal with such things, so I'm not 100% sure, and we will find out for you. And Neil says, Neil Boyle, thank you for the response. I look forward to getting the level 3. Neil, you deserve it, so good luck. I'm sure you'll do great things. So that's good. Let's get rid of those. And so you've had, well, I don't know how many, you've been with us nearly a year, haven't you now, Peter?
September, middle of September, yeah, so nine months.
We've seen more of you on Zoom than in real life then, really. I know it's one of those things.
Was it Mimi that joined on the Monday and then we went into lockdown on the Thursday?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And Mimi is doing really, really well, but we've had to go into whole new areas of training and various other things. In fact, we're going to be interviewing a few people on Zoom as well shortly. So we have no idea what they're going to look like from the waist down, and you can't really ask either. So it's not the thing to do, but still, never mind. But yeah, it's. I think you seem to have made the transition pretty well. You did a presentation at conference, within a couple of weeks at our summit. You've done a few of these yourself, and I think people, even with the accent, people do seem to understand what you're talking about, which is good. And you're talking at our level. And I think that I think probably over the last 2 to 3 years, one of the big changes I've seen is that people, instead of just taking out the word accountant and putting in bookkeeper, are tailoring what they're saying specifically to bookkeepers, because I think we've persuaded them that it's a different market, but it is still a very valuable market in terms of influence as well as monetary return. But so I think, I'd like to say ICB has brought that change about. I mean, we are probably the most outgoing of the bookkeeping organisations, certainly, and we have the biggest number, etc., etc. So congratulations to all of you out there for doing that. And whilst we're talking of congratulations, I will remind you again, you're going to get fed up with hearing this, I know, but We've got the 16th to the 20th of November is Global Bookkeeping Week. That happens every year. This year, exactly the same. Monday to Friday, we're going to be doing all sorts of things right the way around the globe, and a lot in the UK. We will have Monday and Tuesday as our summit. We think at this stage it's going to be virtual, but we don't know. And we've tried asking the government, but as you all know, they don't know either. They've got no idea, and I don't think anybody has. But at the moment, it may well be virtual, but that doesn't matter. The content is going to be fantastic. We're working on it at the moment. We'll be announcing that shortly. But what you also need to remember is that middle Wednesday, the Razor Cup Day, that is your day of glory. That is you being celebrated by other bookkeepers. But more and more, we want politicians, we want some people. I've got some famous people we're trying to get involved as well. All sorts of things we're trying to do. And please get your clients as well to come on and raise a cup to you. Do a selfie, do a video, whatever you want to do. We've got to fill that day with people celebrating the work that you as bookkeepers have done on the front line to make sure that businesses survive, businesses get through COVID and thrive at the end of this. Because some people are saying this, you know, you think this was tough, wait till you now try and get out of the recession that's facing us. So we've got a lot of work to do. Basically, we've all got to sell more to more people. Yeah, same old, but we've got to get running very, very quickly and hit the ground as fast as we can. So I think that's some interesting times coming up. I also mentioned here that the various branch meetings that are running at the moment, we had Devon and Cardiff this week. They both had good numbers. We've got coming up, what have we got? We've got the Gloucester branch. When is that? That is tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, that's tomorrow. Just checking on that. So Essex branch coming up on the 15th. Got Surrey again on the 17th, and we've got South Yorkshire on the 19th. Now, because these are being done on Zoom, it does mean that you can go a little bit further afield to get your branch hit, as it were. So you don't have to be from those areas. Obviously, there will be a lot of local people there, and a local branch to you is probably better because you're talking to people that are in your area, who've got the same sort of challenges that you have. But if you see a good subject and you want to go to one of those branches, you don't have to ask permission, you just sign on. And also, just to remind you, on the, I'm referring to this on my phone, just make sure I get it right, the 17th at 2 o'clock, we've got another webinar from QuickBooks. It's QuickBooks, this is their 4th, and it's new key performance indicators to secure a future for your practice. Now, they're getting very clever and calling them KPIs, basically things to look out for that you know will mean that your business can do better or is doing better. And QuickBooks are working quite closely with ICB at the moment. We have had a lot of extra interest from their clients, the people who are using their software. A lot of you are picking up people who have jumped into using QuickBooks, probably for the first time ever using a piece of software. It's helping them a lot, but they still want some help from a bookkeeper. So a lot of the new members that we're, sorry, new clients that you are getting, members are getting, are coming from QuickBooks people, as they come from every piece of software on the planet, obviously, and long may that continue. I am just having a look. I think we're probably about. Is there anything else you needed to mention, Peter? Before we just look at
nothing in specific. I just Lucy, obviously very keen to get on with our new level 4 syllabus. I'm sorry the book isn't ready. I've got they're working on it. I hope they're working on it now. I released the sample exam questions so that the authors could get to grips. As I say,
they're normally pretty good.
It's different. They're not just cutting and pasting what they've had in previous or other qualifications. So
Sean has said, will our perks be updated with appropriate exemptions soon? That is taking a little bit longer, but yes, they will. It will be available shortly. I can't put a date on that at the moment because it is trying to recognize what exam you've done and what the equivalency is. and our computer is, you know, if we do that wrong, it will wipe everybody's old exams off. So we're being very careful, but that will be available very shortly. So thank you for that, Sean. And I think I've got somebody else. Sorry, I'm looking at two sets of questions here, one from Facebook and one from, oh yeah, I can see you've answered, Lucy. Can we buy the book? Yeah. I slipped up. I do this normally at conference. I say next year we're going to have, and then the staff are completely pestered for the next 12 months while we're getting it together. But yeah, it's good to have new things coming forward, and it's good to have enthusiasm from our members, which is brilliant. I just mentioned the branch meetings. I am working with Kerry Agnew, who looks after our branches at the moment, and I will shortly be announcing a couple of new branches on the northwest of the country, where we have a bit of a barren territory there at the moment, and we'll be running those. So anybody that wants to come along to a branch meeting in their own area, if you're up in the northwest, basically from Chester up to the Scottish borders, keep an eye on our list of events, because we will be doing something very shortly. Now, one of the most popular of our branch meetings is the one where we talk about money laundering regulations and give some practical advice on how to do things. So I think we might well open up those that sort of northwest side with something about money laundering, give you all a chance to grab on to that. Because money laundering is like everything else. If you know what you're doing, it's not half as scary as if you don't. So that'll be great. So, as I say, tomorrow it is Trent Mclaren. Now, he's Australian. We haven't brought in a translator because I think you'll just about pick out what he's saying. He's a very enthusiastic guy. And, you know, I've known Trent for a long, long time. He's been around all sorts of companies within the profession. As I said, he was voted Thought Leader of the Year a couple of years back. I think he's nominated again for it this year. He's quite outspoken. He knows what he's talking about, though, which is really good. So he'll be here tomorrow. And then on Friday, thank Philo, it's Friday, with the inimitable Jackie Mount, who will be doing her stuff again. And so with that, we're just topped the hour. So I'll let you all get off and perhaps get back and do some work. Although some of you tell me that because we run late, sometimes you use that as an excuse to go and have a cup of tea or whatever. So great, whatever you're going to do, have a great weekend. Remember to stay safe. Don't get carried away and lose it all by hugging everybody you meet in the street or anything. So have a nice evening, and thank you, Peter, and we'll see you all soon.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.